everyone, I'm Arlene Dickinson. Thanks for joining me on my podcast. I have been a longtime partner of TELUS because I value the support they provide to both local businesses and entrepreneurs. Recently, TELUS launched Stand With Owners. It's an initiative that's targeted to support Canadian small businesses during COVID-19 because now more than ever, we could all use a bit of help. And that's why TELUS and I have partnered to provide all of my listeners with an exclusive limited time offer. Right now, if you bring your business to TELUS, you can receive 20% off a mobility plan for business, and you also get the first 3 months free. That's right, free. Visit TELUS.com/reinvention to redeem this offer.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Reinvention. Today, Arlene is speaking with rock legend Randy Bachman. Yes, the Randy Bachman of the Guess Who and Bachman-Turner Overdrive fame. Whether you've heard his music in films, at parties or in your car, the music he has created has a very unique sound which will be ingrained in pop culture forever. The journey from not knowing how to read music notes to selling more records in 2 years than the entire Canadian music industry combined wasn't always smooth though. While giving Arlene an inside look of his rise to fame and telling never-before-shared stories, Randy showcases the qualities needed for reinvention, including perseverance, courage, and an insatiable appetite to continue moving forward, no matter the roadblock.
All right, so Randy, it is such a pleasure to see you again, live. Not live and in person, but over Zoom. And I last time I saw you was on an airplane.
Yeah.
And we were both headed, I can't remember, were we headed to Toronto? I can't remember where we were. Were we coming from BC, I think, to Toronto?
Yeah, I had been in Lethbridge, I think, visiting my family. I got my daughter there and grandkids. I think I got on the plane in Calgary, and I think you got on ahead. We were behind each other. You were behind me. I think somebody was in front of me, like Peter Mansbridge or something.
Yeah, that's right. It was kind of this weird little surreal.
When the people came on, it was like a book signing. They stopped at Peter and got a selfie, then me, and then you, and then. Wow. Getting off the plane was another trip.
It was crazy. That's true. It was crazy. Well, really nice to connect with you. And I mean, I was thinking about what we could talk about relative to reinvention. And there's so much about your life that I find it's just not just fascinating because as we always say, we are open books. Everybody knows everything about us. And in particular, you shared through a mini series, or through that special that you did a lot about your life. But I'm really curious to talk to you about kind of how you have managed to continually reinvent yourself, even in the same industry, by doing so many different things and reinventing, kind of financially reinventing yourself, musically reinventing yourself, personally reinventing yourself with your family. So let's maybe just tell us, is there a Reader's Digest version of your life? Is there a short or is there such a thing when you're Randy Bachman and you have so huge history, but what's the short version? Born in Winnipeg?
Born in Winnipeg. I've heard this said many times. The two greatest days in your life are the day you're born and the day you know why you were born.
Oh, yeah.
So when I was, which means when you find out your purpose in life,
yeah.
Shooting hoops, helping people, being a doctor, whatever, and whatever age you find that and you plunge into that, every day is a joy. You're doing exactly what you were born to do. And whether you make money or not is irrelevant, but the more you do it, the better you get than the next person, and they start to pay you. I mean, I pay the doctor, I pay the plumber, he pays me to entertain him. So the whole world is full of people that have found their purpose. You've got a great purpose as well. You're helping so many people, and which is obviously finance is very important. So when you find that out, and I found out at the age of 3, my mother put me on stage in the Dominion Theatre in Winnipeg at Portage. It was called the Western Hour. It was live on the radio on CKY. And in the middle of the show, which they had all country Western people coming up to Winnipeg because they'd all go and play in Grand Forks at the Air Force Base. They would drive 90 miles up to or Fargo, or they'd drive up to Winnipeg, play a show, and they'd all be on the Western Hour. So at noon, every Saturday, they had a thing called King of the Saddle. So amateurs came on, and you could sing on a show. Meanwhile, you're singing with Ray Price and Johnny Cash and all these guys who've come up. And I walk up, I get pushed out there with a little guitar. I'm frightened. I'm crying, of course. It's dark.
You're 3. You're
dark.
3. You're
It's dark. It's a theater. And And I go out there and I don't even know how to play guitar, and I'm crying, and they go, "Oh, isn't he cute?" And my mother's going, "Sing, sing." So I sing Beautiful Brown Eyes, and I win. I'm king of the saddle for a week. They hand me an envelope, and it is a $5 bill. When you're 3.5 years of age, you get a $5 bill. Your allowance is a nickel or a dime. I'm buying all my friends popsicles and drinks and everything. And I go back the next week to defend my king of the saddle. I got dethroned by a little girl who was 5. And I realized at that time, show business is very fickle. You're on top one week, the next week someone else is on top. You're not necessarily down, but it's a rotating throne or peak that everybody's climbing up. And then I started playing violin, for classical violin, till I was 14 or 15. Gave it up because it was just too rigid and too strict. Radio was changing. All the country western shows I was going to see in Winnipeg were suddenly, Jerry Lee Lewis was playing a whole lot of shaking going on instead of Crazy Arms, and things were rocking out. And I saw Elvis on television, and blam, I said, "What is that?" That's rock and roll. That's a guitar. That's Elvis Presley. The first time I heard the name Elvis Presley, what's that name? It's not Johnny Semchuk, like a Winnipeg name. Elvis Presley. And then I was hooked on that. And ever since then, it's like my passion was reinvented then when I found the guitar after classical violin. And I was just very, very lucky. But I bluffed my way. One of my mottos is, when in doubt, bluff. And then prove the bluff. Like when somebody says, "Can you read music?" I say, "Of course. What do you want me to read?" "Oh, I'm going to give you 20 songs. What are the songs?" You go and you play them. You learn them in your head. They put the music in front of you. You play the songs. They go, "Wow, that's great." They don't really know. So I've done that my whole life. Plan B is stick to plan A. And plan A is you get a goal, and whatever is in your way, you find a way to go over it, around it, under it. You keep banging your head against that wall, because when you don't, you're a quitter. And when you quit, you can't win the race. When you stop halfway at the mountain, you can't climb to the top of the mountains. You might stop and rest. You might crawl a foot a day, but you get to the top of the mountain. It's been that way with kind of every career, everything I've done.
That's really great advice, because, a lot of times we find ourselves, and I think this is why people don't reinvent them. And I like you saying that you reinvented your passion, because you can start off with passion for a purpose when you were 3 and say, okay, my purpose is music. But you did take a side journey into violin music and realized that you didn't like the violin, right? And then you went back to, and then you found rock and roll. So you still found your purpose in there. But when you think about why people get stuck, it is exactly what you say. They kind of go halfway up the mountain, and then they run into an obstacle. It becomes a little bit more of a difficult climb, or the weather changes, or something happens that becomes almost impossible to see the top. And then you find yourself just saying, "You know what, I've gone far enough." And then that's when you never reach really the goals that you want in life. How old were you when you took violin lessons?
5.
5. So 5 years old.
5 till about 14.
And then how old were you when you saw Elvis for the first time?
It was 14. 14. I quit Saturday. I quit on a Saturday. I was asked to join the Winnipeg Junior School Symphony, where I went to try out with a symphony. And this was at Neil Young's high school in Winnipeg called Calvin High. And there's like 80 kids trying out. I'm trying out for second violin, which is really a big deal. And halfway through the first song, there's tap, 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 tap. And the guy who's leading the orchestra, the maestro, the teacher, he says, "Second violin, bar 32, it's an E flat, not an E natural. Let's take it from the top." I look at him, we start the song over. We get to the same place in the music. I don't know a bar from anything. I realized since I was 5, I've been playing by ear. My teacher, who was a wonderful lady, would put this sheet of music in front of me and say, "Okay, this is Chopin, this is Tchaikovsky," and she'd play it. And I'd sit there and I'd look at the notes up and down, and I would remember what she played. And she would say, "Okay, now take this home, give me the music, and practice it for a week." And I'd say, "Why? I already know it." Because I played perfectly after she played it. But when I'm at this junior symphony thing, and we get to bar 32 again, I play the same note. It's a blue note. It's like a B.B. King. I'm playing an E, playing a note on the violin. And he says, "Second violin, what don't you understand about an E flat?" And I didn't know what he was talking about. I knew there's strings on the violin. One of them was an E, and I knew it was an open string. So when you play the E, it's an open string. But you can't go below that. It's an open string. So I didn't know what an E flat was. I didn't realize, you know what I mean? I didn't know the position. I knew it in my head, but I couldn't find it. And all the kids start laughing. So you can imagine like 80-something kids laughing or snickering at you. In tears, I put my violin in my case, got on the bus, took the bus home to my end of Winnipeg. And my mother said, how did it go? And I said, that's it, I quit. I don't know what I'm doing. I can't play violin. And the next day I saw Elvis on TV. My cousins had a guitar. They're from Woodridge, Manitoba, but they had moved to Winnipeg. And so they were like country western guys. They were playing Ray Price and Webb Pierce and all these, and Johnny Cash and a bit of Elvis. And I said, can I try your guitar? And the minute they gave me the guitar, I could play anything because I played by ear. And I found the notes on the guitar neck just like I did on the violin. So they hand me a guitar and they say, okay, here's a song we want you to try and play. And the first song I ever played was I Walk the Line by Johnny Cash. So I hear it through once and I play it and they go, how do you know how to play that? And I go, I don't know. I feel a change coming and I find the notes, do, mi, so, do. Every chord is do, mi, so, do, or that kind of configuration. And then 6 months later, I started a band. And 6 months after that, I was in a band that became the Guess Who. But again, I bluffed because they said, we need a rhythm guitar player. He's leaving the band. Would you play rhythm guitar? I said, of course I'll play rhythm guitar. So I go to the first rehearsal, but I'd learned all the leads. So I go to the first rehearsal and I'm playing rhythm guitar in the first song. The lead guitar player breaks a string. I finish playing the song. And they all look at me in amazement. He goes, wow, you play better lead than me. Do you want to play lead? And I said, that's why I came. So I was lead guitar in the Guess Who. And then, blam, here I am.
You say you bluffed, but you didn't bluff. You had this amazing talent that you allowed to shine. I mean, maybe you bluffed the fact that you couldn't read music, but like the fact that you could, what do you call it? A phonographic memory? Like, I love that.
Photographic.
So a photographic memory. Yeah. I mean, that you can just listen to a song and then play it. Tell me about that. Tell me about going in. Like, when you met the guys from the Guess Who, when you met that group, did you know that you were onto something amazing and that it would turn into what it did? I mean, I can't imagine that. Like, was it in a garage? Was it in a basement? How did that look? Describe that room and that whole first experience.
Well, first of all, I started a band in my end of town, and it was a lot like growing up at your community center. You played hockey, you played Little League baseball. And then you played against the Neil Youngs who were on the other side of Winnipeg and the Fred Turners and the Burton Cummings. So I grew up with all of these guys kind of playing hockey, Little League together, and then find out Burton Cummings plays piano and Gary Peterson plays drums and Neil Young plays guitar, and he started a band. So I started a band. And then when you start a band, it's like starting anything in a business. Somebody just isn't right for that team or that organization. So you trade them in a band, you fire them and they quit or whatever. So I ended up gravitating to better and better musicians. So when I got to the Guess Who, they rehearsed in a guy who had grade 12 piano, classical piano. Chad Allen had 10 years on accordion and playing guitar. Their drummer was quite terrible, and I couldn't play them. I had played with Gary Peterson, who's still with the Guess Who to this day, and a great child prodigy drummer who started playing when he was 3, and he played big band stuff because his dad was a big band drummer. And Gary Peterson, his dad would take him, and he actually would play with the Benny Goodman Orchestra when they came to Winnipeg, or with Lionel Hampton, or these big jazz guys. They'd set up this thing, and this little kid would go and play the drums, and he'd do a solo in the middle, and everyone would go crazy. So I started to play with him. We were on the same hockey team together. So when I go to try it for the Guess Who, the drummer is not very good. He's not playing a beat on the drums. He's playing the guitar parts. So if I'm going da 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 da, he's playing on the drums da 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 da. And I'm going, wait a minute, you're supposed to go boom, shh. You're supposed to be 2 and 4, like clapping your hands, and he couldn't do that. So I said to the band, okay, I'm in, but I can't play with your drummer. I've got the world's greatest drummer. Okay, he's 15 now. I was 16 or 17.
The world's greatest.
This is a Tuesday night. Yeah. It's in Winnipeg. It's 11 o'clock. The buses have stopped running. Yeah. In those days, you had one phone in the house. Remember, it was in the kitchen. Yeah. And when it rang, guess who answered it? Your father. You weren't allowed to answer the phone. So it's like 11 o'clock at night. And they say, okay, you got a drummer? We have a gig Friday. This is Tuesday night. Let's try out your drummer. And I go, wait a minute. I phoned Gary Peterson's father, Mr. Peterson. Hello, Ferdy. This is Randy Bachman. Yes, what's wrong? What's wrong? Because it's now 11:10 at night.
You're gonna be in bed.
Nothing's wrong. Right. But I have a chance to be in Winnipeg's greatest band. Have you heard of Ellen and the Silvertones or Chad Allen and the Reflections? Because we were changing our name. Yes, I have. They're the best band. Well, I have a chance for Gary to be the drummer. Yes. Can we come over? They need to audition him. Where are you? Well, I'm in St. Vital. Get in a taxi. I'll pay the taxi because the buses had stopped running. So God bless Ferdy Peterson. We got to his house at 1 o'clock in the morning. In the basement was an old upright piano. I had brought an amplifier and guitar, and there was a set of drums. We ran through 3 songs with Gary. They gave him a set list. They said, we have a gig Friday night. We played Friday night. He was phenomenal. He's still in the band.
That's like, but like you say, God bless the dad, because for him to say, especially back then at 11 o'clock at night, to say, hey, get in a cab, come over, I'll pay for the cab, and to let his son have that opportunity.
The opportunity.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is really what life is. I mean, life is a series of, you can see things as opportunities or obstacles. I mean, the fact that you actually picked up the phone and said, hey, let's do this. And he answered and said, yes, that's great. I mean, that's a fabulous story. And but back to, did you know you were on to something? Did you guys know? Did you feel it? Did you have the sense of we're on to something major here?
Well, we were really, really good. When I got in there, and I was like probably one of the best in town, but I had a mentor by the name of Lenny Bro, who was an incredible guitar player, a year older than me. And he had moved to Winnipeg with his band. He had quit school when he was 10 to play with his family band. And if you remember way back then, Roy Rogers and Gene Autry were the singing cowboys. They had these nudie suits with big fringes on, sparkling hats, and they would do country western music. And so his mom and dad were that, but he was like their guitar player in the band. And when I met him, they were playing Elvis, Carl Perkins' Rockabilly, and I wanted to play like Elvis's guitar player, who was Scotty Moore. And so I hung out with Lenny Bro. I skipped school. I was an A student. I was a little mama's boy, teacher's pet kind of thing, till the middle of grade 10, when I discovered Elvis and guitar, and that became a hunger to learn this, to eat this food or learn this vocabulary so I could speak this new language. And when Lenny Bro moved across the street from a girlfriend of mine, I had twin girlfriends who were German. We all went to the same church together. It was so far in Winnipeg because then you had to walk home for lunch and walk back. They gave an hour and a half from noon to 1:30 for lunch. My mom didn't want me walking back and forth at 40 below zero, which Winnipeg is for 6 months of the year. So she arranged for me to go to the Schmallinger's house and have lunch with the 2 twins, and the mother they would go back to school in the afternoon. I'd go across the street to Lenny Bro's house. And I did that for 2 years, every afternoon. At the end of the year, my mother looks at my report card and goes, something's wrong with this. It says you missed 152 afternoons. And I go, there's nothing wrong with it, but listen to how I can play. So I flunked grade 10 and I flunked grade 11. I repeated 2 years in each grade. When you're repeating the second year, it's a piece of cake, right? It's really easy. You can kind of remember bits in that. But I had this incredible knowledge from Lenny Bro. Then he switched into jazz. Anything I would take him and say, and he couldn't read music either. He would just get a record and put it on and play it over and over and over and over until he found out where it went on the guitar, and then find an easier place to play it on the guitar. So you want to play in one position on a guitar, not all over the place. And that was just the greatest thing. So whenever I do a solo, to this day, a guitar solo, or write a song, I think back to my kindergarten years with Lenny Bro, or my first Eric Clapton solo that I heard in I Feel Free, which is I copied an American Woman. And so you always get guys who you idolize, and you kind of take their wisdom and knowledge and you absorb it, and it comes out of you in a different way.
But you went through, so I mean, if you go through that period of time, you're playing in that band, you're growing, you've got the Guess Who, and then in 1965, I think it was, you had the #1 hit in Canada with your cover of Johnny Kid's "Shakin' All Over," right?
Yes.
And that charted in the US at number 22. And then in 68, Chad Allen left your band and Burton Cummings became the primary vocalist, right? And that had to be a huge turning point again when Burton became your vocalist.
Yes, the band broke up. We came back. Our lead singer said, "That's it. I hate the road. I'm going back to U of M." He was in the University of Manitoba. He went back to school. When we were the top band. When we left Winnipeg, and Winnipeg was phenomenal in the mid-'60s. Every community center, every high school had dances. The drinking age was 21. So when you played a high school dance, everybody like from 22 down came to the high school dance because we as bands couldn't go play the nightclubs. So our dances didn't have 150 people. They had 800, 900 people at a high school gym just dancing. So it was incredible. So when we left town, the next bands took our place. We were on tour at the Kingsmen doing the Louie Louie tour and playing with Dion and the Belmonts, and this was a dream come true. But Burton Cummings and the Deverons, Neil Young and the Squires, Fred Turner and the Rockin' Devils, everybody moved up, and they were now the top couple of bands. We come back, our throne is gone. It's been absconded. Our king quits the team, or our leader quits the team. And I thought, well, I guess we're breaking up. And I sat down and go, why are we breaking up? We just did a tour with the Kingsmen. We're with Scepter Records. We met Ashford Simpson. We met Bacharach and David. We met Phil Ramone. We met all these guys who are just on the edge of being huge in the world. And this is an opportunity. So I thought about it, and this happens in business all the time. You merge two companies. So my father went to school with Burton Cummings' mother. So he said, I know Rhoda Cummings, so give her a call. I'll call her. So he calls Rhoda. Hi, this is Charlie Bachman. I want to put my son on the phone. And it's amazing how your parents helped you out because they paid for your music lessons. You know what I mean? My dad, as poor as they were, with four sons, somehow they squeezed out $2 a week for me to take a bus ticket and go for my violin lesson. So I talked to Rhoda Cummings, and she said, yes, I'd like Burton to be in your band, but I'd like you to act as his brother. I needed her to sign his contract. He was like 17 or 16. She had to sign the contract. And she said, but I want you to act as his bigger brother. You can pick him up for a gig and bring him home after the gig. He's only 17. I don't want him hanging out with his friends.
How old were you? How old were you at the time?
I was 2 years older than Burton.
Oh, you were like really like 19. Okay.
So that was it. Burton Cummings joined the band. It was a real shift, a paradigm shift from Chad Allen to Burton Cummings, who was a keyboard player, who, when I kind of auditioned him, I got him to sing the same song. 5 years later, I got Fred Turner to sing the same songs, Oh, Danny Boy and House of the Rising Sun. So if they could sing Oh, Danny Boy and bring you to tears, then do There Is a House in New Orleans. If they can rock out and growl like that, that's the kind of singer you want. You want to be able to do both songs, both kinds of music. And so Burton did that, and he joined the band. So then I taught him.
And then didn't you have like these? Was that about the time that you had These Eyes? Because I mean, that's the song that I remember most of all. Like when I think back to those days, I mean, These Eyes was just. Yes, American Women, which came later, was such an amazing song. But These Eyes was just such a. I just couldn't believe that was a Canadian band. I mean, I remember listening to it on the radio, thinking that's a Canadian band. I was so like proud of that moment, right?
That was an amazing song, and Burton was 17 when he sang that.
Wow. Well, I didn't know that.
And I wrote it on piano. That's why the beginning is so simple. Anyone can sit down in the key of C and go boom, boom, da, da, da. Anybody can do that. And I wrote that in Regina.
Yeah.
I had gone to Joni Mitchell concert, her first concert as she married Chuck Mitchell. Her name was Joni Anderson, and it was Joni and Chuck Mitchell playing at the 4D in Regina, which is the Fourth Dimension. So I went to see that show. In walked two really good-looking ladies, a blonde and a brunette, and the whole place was sold out except this table had a reserve sign at it. And so these two really good-looking chicks sit down, and I go, oh, something hit me right in the chest. Like Cupid's arrow just hit me in the chest. Oh, my God. And I wasn't really a ladies' man. I didn't really know I had three brothers. All my cousins were brothers. I didn't really know how to speak to a girl. So I said to our road manager, Jim Martin, who's a real ladies' man, could you go and sit with those two chicks? Don't talk to the brunette, just talk to the blonde. See if you could sit at their table, because there's just the two of them there. And if you get lucky, call me over, and then vanish. So he called me over. He introduced me to them. They were two sisters. At the end of the show, I said, can I take you home? They said, yeah, our dad dropped us off. Those were the days when your parents took you to a dance or a concert and stuff. And so I took them home, and I asked the brunette for a date the next night. When I went to pick her up, it was on Angus Avenue in Regina. And it was a great big room with a big couch, a plant, and a little piano, a little lounge piano. And of course, I'm early. She's late. I'm waiting and waiting. So we missed the movie. We miss everything. I sit down at the piano. I just start to play, boom, boom, da-da, and I go, these arms long to hold you. Like I'm waiting for our first date. I write a song called These Arms. And then later I showed it to Burton Cummings. He said, These Arms is not bad, but let's make that the second line. And let's make the first one, These Eyes Cry Every Night. Then go, These Arms Long to Hold You. And I said, no, this is called These Arms. And once I gave that up, because when you're songwriting, it's a collaboration. You've got to give, because you're going to get a take on, you're going to get a take later on in writing the song or in doing anything. It's like any relationship. And the minute we said these eyes cry every night, that set a thing for the whole, then these arms long to hold you. And then the whole song fell into place. And if you try to sing that song today, it's as tough to sing as an Elton John or Roy Orbison song. It's like 4.5 octaves. Burton Cummings makes it sound very easy because it starts real low, but every chorus it goes up. These eyes have seen love, I'm going to see in love like the head with you. That's up a whole tone. Then it goes again, da 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 da. Then it goes in love with you, do, and it goes up again. And it keeps ascending and ascending. When I hear that today on the radio, I am still quite amazed. We had a great producer named Jack Richardson. He took us to New York. Faux Ramon was the engineer producer on that. And he went on to do Billy Joel and Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. He's done everybody. So we were very, very lucky with that song.
Well, maybe you needed to be 17 to be able to have that range too, because that probably comes with having a younger voice, is it not? Or I don't know enough about music, but I assume that it would actually have something to do with your age. And then you hit American Women, and American Women became, I think it was it the first #1 hit in the US Hot 100 charts for a Canadian band, right? So here's this Canadian band from Winnipeg, gets a #1 hit on the Hot 100 US list, which is just amazing. And then I imagine your life just changed dramatically. And I guess, if we think, I could sit and talk to you forever about just your music career, but I'd love to just chat a little bit about how it actually, all of that fame and all of that headiness that comes with being on stage and having, people idolize you and adore you and sing your songs and all the things that come with being a rock star. How did that influence the personal side of your life? I mean, professionally, you're so accomplished and you've got so much, but Randy, if you think about it, I mean, and you and I share something in common that I'll tell the audience. I mean, we both were raised as Latter-day Saints. We were both raised in the Mormon church. And I know what that did to me, but you were at that point a Mormon, you were at that point LDS, and you're very famous and you're surrounded by drugs and rock and roll and drinking and all of these things that are completely in conflict with what's going on in your professional life. How did that impact you?
It made me pretty strong. Yeah. As you know, to refuse smoking, drinking, free whatever you want, sex, even drink. I've never drank coffee in my life. I don't need it. I don't care about it, right? It's like after a while, these things you just push them out of the way. But I was very, very, very lonely. Yeah. Everybody thinks being a musician on the road or being an actor or actress, you're taken away from home for months and months and months at a time because that's how you earn your money. And then when that tour is over or the movie's over or the play is over, you're what's called unemployed. You sit at home waiting for the phone to ring again. And when it rings, you're kind of glad, but it means you got to go away again. And the heartbreak of when a gig is over, and I've said this in many songs, standing in the silence with my own guitar. Everyone's going home with their loved one, whoever they came with. You know what I mean? Their partner, their mother, their father, or they're all going home to a cozy house. And here I am in the arena, and then later in my hotel room alone. Things are much different now. Then I would save my money and phone home every second day because you had to phone on a landline, right? And the hotel put a surcharge. So I'd phone home and get a bill for $300. And I made a deal with my kids to talk to them each for 5 minutes. They had to prioritize their problems and tell me what was wrong or who teased who.
So wait, you were married at that point. Okay, we skipped that point. Hold on. So when did you get married? What point were you married?
I got married the summer I wrote These Eyes. It was 66.
To that girl? To the girl that you...
Yeah.
Oh, no, wait a second. Wait, hold the presses. I
married her. And we had 6 kids, and Tal's the oldest, and Tal's my son from that marriage.
Okay, well, you skipped an important part of the story then, or I did. I missed it. So let's just, for our listeners. So you write the song. This is one of the first girls you probably dated. You said you were kind of an awkward kid. You write the song. You marry her. Then you marry her. How long afterwards did you marry her?
4 months.
4 months. So 4 months later, you
Well, I kind of said to her, "Look, let's get married. I love you. Let's get married." And she was really beautiful. She was Miss Regina Rough Rider when I met her, and she was really gorgeous. And then she was a Mormon chick, so she liked being in the house. She liked family. She made pies. She made jam. It's like, holy cow, this is incredible.
So her name was Lorraine, right?
Yes.
Still is Lorraine. So Lorraine so you fell in love with this Mormon girl. You were LDS at the time? You were Mormon at the time?
No, my first introduction was meeting her.
Okay.
She said, do you drink coffee? I said, no, I don't like the taste. Do you drink beer? No, I don't like the taste. I didn't like the taste of anything. Do you smoke? No, I've got asthma. I don't smoke. Oh, you sound great.
You were perfect. You were a perfect candidate. They didn't have to choose any of that. So I asked her I said to her, look, I have 3 weeks in December off. Do you want to get married? Because at Christmas you get really busy, a musician. The New Year's Eve is your busiest. And so we got married in the big hotel in Regina, downtown, the Hotel Saskatchewan, whatever it's called, the big railroad one there. And Burton Cummings sang at our wedding. Oh, that's amazing. So did you convert to Mormonism when?
Shortly before we got married. I went to church a couple of times in Winnipeg. I thought, this is okay. I had gone to Lutheran before that. My dad was Lutheran. My mother was Catholic. Yeah. They were okay. I went to Sunday school growing up. I knew the whole Bible thing. I thought the Mormon thing was okay. I thought it was kind of neat.
So again, there you are, you're on the road, you're performing away from home, you're surrounded by all of these things that are really, against the teachings of the church you belonged to at the time. And you said you didn't get trapped by all the women that were there and all the drugs and all the booze and everything. You were home in your hotel room alone with your guitar, which I actually really relate to, because I think people do believe when you're on stage or when you're out in the public eye that you live this gigantically huge life every moment of every day. Yeah. And in fact, a lot of times, I come back, I shut my door and I am by myself, and I personally quite like being alone, so I'm lucky. But yeah, but I often think if people saw my life, they would probably be fast asleep, bored to death, because there's not much going on after the events and all the things that you get to go to. Not to say that those things aren't awesome, because they are, but it's a very different life when you're done the gig, right?
Yeah, you are alone, and I do like being alone. People said to me, how do you feel about this COVID thing? You're alone. I said, this is fantastic. This is the longest I've been home in decades. I'll be home for a couple of months and actually clean my closet, clean my garage, shut up my home studio, start doing podcasts with my son. Got renewed by CBC, got a Sirius XM show where Tal and I are dissecting the Beatles music. All these opportunities are happening. Listen to this. All the stuff I played, Shaking All Over These Eyes, was on an orange Gretsch guitar, which I bought way back in the Lenny Bro era in Winnipeg. I played that on Shaking All Over These Eyes, zillions of songs, American Woman, everything. It was stolen from a hotel room in 1976 in Toronto. We were recording at Phase One Studios in Toronto. I would never let this guitar out of my sight, except my roadie took it to put in the van, left it in the Holiday Inn room, went and paid the bill, came back, it was gone. Oh. So that guitar was stolen. So as a kid, and you know what it's like when you want to get your baseball mitt or whatever. I wanted this guitar. I mowed lawns. I babysat. I worked at a car wash. I was still going to school. I played in the band to get the $400 for this guitar. I slept with this guitar. I liked this guitar so much and I would take it with me on the road. I would go and I carried a big length of chain, about 12 feet of chain with 2 locks. And I would go in, when I had to leave my hotel room, I would put this guitar in the bathroom next to the toilet, put the chain around the case, through the handle, and around the toilet twice, and lock it. So if somebody wanted to steal it, they'd have to rip the toilet out of the floor in the hotel and cause a big flood. So this is how careful I was with this guitar. This chain must have weighed 12, 14 pounds, a big tow truck chain. I wasn't messing around. Yeah. And then because of this guy's carelessness, it got stolen. That remained gone for years. When this COVID opened up, in March, and I was at home, we got an email. My son gets a lot of my email because he does Vinyl Tap with me, and we get a lot of Vinyl Tap me where people want certain kinds of shows. And my daughter, Lorelai Lethbridge, does my social media. So suddenly this email comes, and they both say, Dad, you need to look at this. A guy who lives in White Rock, which is where we used to live in near Vancouver, has found your Gretsch. And I go, I've heard this story a zillion times. I've heard this over and over. This sounds like a real thing. So we phoned this guy. We're now doing a documentary on this. This guy did facial recognition of my guitar. I said, how do you do that? He said, well, I looked up the BTO thing of you looking out for number one, and there you are playing your orange Gretsch. It's got two little marks on it. I said, yeah, that's part of the wood at the flaw, because Gretsch is made out of plywood, and plywood sometimes has beautiful grain in it. Even when there used to be a branch, they put a nice little knot that's kind of like a little circle or something.
Yeah.
And he looks at every orange Gretsch sold on the internet in the last 20 years, and he finds my guitar.
Come on.
And it's in Japan with a guy named Takeshi, who doesn't speak English. But my son's partner, Coco, is Japanese. So she sends an email to Takeshi going, and he thinks the same thing. This is a fan thing. People are because he gets a lot of fan mail. And he ends up being a Japanese songwriter he writes for all these boy bands that he writes songs for. And he's in a rockabilly band. He's playing my Gretsch. And they send me a picture of him New Year's Eve in a club in Tokyo. And he's doing some rockabilly song, which he sings all phonetically because he doesn't speak English. And I look at it and I'm in tears. After this long period of time, somebody's saying, this is your guitar. Is your name Randy? I think you're my dad, that kind of thing, you know? It's really weird how this all happened. The same week that this happens, I get an email out of the blue from Fred Gretsch, who owns the Gretsch company. He's in Savannah, Georgia. And he sends an email saying, can we have a phone appointment on Friday? And go, what about? Because I sold him my Gretsch collection about 10 years ago, because I had a big Gretsch collection. In trying to find my orange Gretsch, I bought every Gretsch I could find. I couldn't find mine. So I had 350 Gretsches, which he bought for his Gretsch. He bought them for his museum in Savannah, Georgia. So they're there right now. He's got 350 of my Gretsch guitars. So it's pretty amazing. So he gets me on the phone. He says, we're getting older. How many days we got left? How many sleeps have we got left? I said, I don't know, maybe 30 years of them. I don't know. I'm very optimistic. And he said, let's do something great together. I'm like, what? Let's do something great. Let's film it. Let's help somebody out and all this stuff. So I get him on the phone. He knows my Gretsch story, right? So I get him on the phone with Takeshi. So long story short, we're filming this as a documentary. Takeshi does have my guitar. We are going to go to the Gretsch factory, which is in Nagoya, Japan. Takeshi's going to come there. We're going to play together. But here's the thing. Takeshi said, I feel I was born to have this guitar.
Oh no.
We're on a Zoom. So this takes an hour because
he's not born to have your guitar. That's your guitar. Right.
That's exactly what I said. So this takes a while to say because he says it. Then Eriko translates it to me. And then my reply, it's like a United Nations thing. She translates it back. And I say, I was born to get that guitar. And I did all this stuff, mowing lawns and working in a car wash to get the guitar.
Yeah, it's my guitar.
Right. And he said, well, how did you get the guitar? So I said, well, I went into Winnipeg. I had a different Gretsch first. It had different pickups. I had that for a while and I played it, but it wasn't the twangy one like Dwayne Eddy had or Chet Atkins was playing. And so when the twangy one came in with the black pickups, I traded mine in. And then I got the twangy one that became mine. The other one I traded in, Neil Young got, he still got it to this day. He's got the orange Gretsch. So that's another great part of that story. So he says, well, I went into a music store and it had 7 Gretsches on the wall. 5 of them had the new pickups and 2 of them had the black pickups, the old one, which is like mine. And I played them all, nothing happened. It's like meeting a woman or a person, right? When I played this one, ka-ching, I felt I was born to have it. And I said, yes, but I had the same thing. I felt I was born to have it. And he said, I'm an honorable man. And I believe this is your guitar. The marks on it are the same. It's in good shape. I believe. And he said, I was born to have this. I said, when were you born? He said, 1975. I said, that's when it was stolen. He went, oh, I believe he said, I've had it 7 years now. I believe I'm a custodian, but to give it back to you honorably, you must find me one just like it. So I've got to go and find a really mint-shaped 1957 Gretsch 6120 orange Chet Atkins Dwayne Eddy guitar, and I found one in Ohio. So I've got it here now. We're arranging to go there in October to go to the Gretsch factory. I trade guitars with them. We're going to do a gig there. Oh, and another weird thing happened. Can I keep telling you this story?
Yeah, sure. I mean, absolutely. I'm dying to hear it now.
So I come home and Eriko says, you won't believe what happened. Out of the blue, I get an email because Tal and I are doing this YouTube broadcast and people can now comment live when we're playing live. And the thing comes in saying, I saw BTO in 1976 in Japan at the Budokan. We recorded a live album at the Budokan. And then they came to play in Nagoya where I live. here's my ticket. And the guy still had his ticket. And here's all my albums. He's got all the BTO albums in Japanese. And at the top of it, and he says, and I've got Randy's guitar pick. So this must have been the special guy, because I have a special guitar pick. I had them custom made. I had a gross of them made in 1976, which is a dozen. I still have most of them. I don't give them away. They're a real special pick.
Yeah.
This guy had a pick, and I went, this guy must have been really cool, a fan in Japan, that I gave him my guitar pick. And then I kind of remember he did a little interview for his newspaper. At the top of his email, because we're emailing, at the top of his email is this little Japanese girl that looks like Pippi Longstocking, like with black hair and little pigtails at the side. And I said, Erica, what is that? She said, oh, that's famous. There's a thing in Japan that's kind of like The Simpsons. It's an animated show, and it's called da-da-da. I don't know what it's called because it's in Japanese. And everybody watches it, and everybody knows it. Okay. She then calls Takeshi, because we're doing another Zoom with Fred Gretsch, saying, can we get together? Can we travel? Can we come there and trade this guitar? And can Fred Gretsch come from Savannah, Georgia to Vancouver? And can we all fly to Japan? And she says to Takeshi says, why do you have that little symbol of the little girl? And Erica says, well, a guy from Nagoya. He said, I do the music for that animation cartoon. I've been doing it for 7 years. I do the music for that show. So all these weird circumstances happen. I play Scrabble night and day with my kids. And then when I have nothing to do, I've got it on first my BlackBerry, now my iPhone. So when you start a Scrabble game, you draw 7 letters. And if you don't like them, you can trade your turn or whatever. When it's the computer and you're starting, the computer gives you 7 letters. You have no choice. So the next day, I'm playing Scrabble. The computer kicks me out. I'm the first guy. It kicks me out HTGRT.
Oh, come on.
I look at it and I go, does this spell Gretsch? And I rearrange them and it spells Gretsch. So what are the odds of that? And I'm looking at it, and I call my grandson. I say, quick, bring your thing. I got to take a picture. They say, oh, you can do your own picture on an iPhone. You hold this and you push that. You take a picture of your screen. So I have a picture of that. Then I put it up on the screen, and the H ends up, because it's a double. It's my first word. It's a double letter, and my H is also on a double. I end up with like 84 points, and I'm going, this is amazing. And I push enter, and then the computer says to me, this is not a real word. We don't accept it. So I've saved these 3 pictures because it's a name, right? Yeah. So all this weird, incredible happenstance stuff happens to me. And I've learned, even in writing songs or doing anything, if you like do your best and you're sitting there, when you feel something happening, don't be afraid. When you're at the edge and it's a dark room, you got to go into the room. You got to jump off the edge, or else you'll never know what's beyond the edge.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's such a, I think, I don't believe in fate, but I do believe in this notion of being open to things happening, like when you have an open attitude, then you allow the universe to help speak to you. I believe that. I think it's actually what happens.
Wow, what a life Randy has been living. It's one thing to be able to discover your core purpose, but to do it at such a young age and see it flourish the way it has for Randy is truly incredible. Many in his shoes would have been greatly discouraged when his teacher and classmates laughed at him, some to the point of quitting. His ability to simply push through that roadblock and every other one in his way is a testament to the power of persistence and perseverance. You've yet to hear the full story, though. Tune in next week for part 2 of Randy's interview, where he talks about his financial fall, the impact of his divorce, and rebuilding when you're at the very bottom.
This podcast is made possible by the great folks at Venture Communications. Thanks to our engineers, writers, producers, and all the folks who work really hard to bring you these great stories of reinventions each and every week.